Afghanistan, a name synonymous with conflict. For centuries, this rugged, landlocked nation at the heart of Asia has been a crossroads of empires and a battleground for rival powers. Understanding Afghanistan's tumultuous past is essential to grasping the events that unfolded in the 20 years following the US-led invasion in 2001.
Has begun strikes against Al-Qaeda terrorist training camps and military installations of the Taliban regime in Afghanistan.
From the conquests of Alexander the Great to the great game between the British and Russian empires, Afghanistan has been a coveted prize. In the 20th century, it faced a brutal Soviet invasion and a subsequent civil war that gave rise to the Taliban. This group, emerging from the chaos of conflict, promised order and a strict interpretation of Islamic law. By the late 1990s, the Taliban had seized control of most of the country, imposing their harsh rule on the Afghan people. Their regime, harboring Osama bin Laden and his Al-Qaeda network, would set the stage for a new chapter in Afghanistan's long history of conflict, the US-led intervention following the September 11th attacks. The Taliban, meaning students in Pashto, emerged from the chaos of Afghanistan's civil war in the early 1990s. Many of their fighters were young men, educated in conservative Sunni Islamic schools, or madrasas, along the Afghan-Pakistan border. These schools, funded in part by Saudi Arabia, preached a strict fundamentalist interpretation of Islam. The Taliban promised to restore order and enforce Islamic law, appealing to a population weary of warlordism and lawlessness. They quickly gained control of Kandahar, a strategic city in southern Afghanistan, and from there, their influence spread rapidly. By 1996, the Taliban had captured Kabul, the capital city, and established control over most of Afghanistan. They imposed their strict interpretation of Sharia law, severely restricting women's rights, banning music and television, and carrying out public executions. Their regime, recognized by only a handful of countries, became a pariah state on the world stage. The September 11th attacks on the United States, orchestrated by Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda from their safe haven in Afghanistan, changed everything. The US, under President George W. Bush, demanded that the Taliban hand over bin Laden and shut down Al-Qaeda's training camps. The Taliban refused, unwilling to surrender a guest, even one who had brought the wrath of a superpower upon them. In October 2001, the US, with the support of international allies, launched Operation Enduring Freedom, a military campaign aimed at removing the Taliban from power and dismantling Al-Qaeda. The Taliban, outmatched technologically and facing US air superiority, quickly lost control of major cities. The US and its allies established a new government in Kabul led by Hamid Karzai and vowed to help rebuild Afghanistan as a democratic state. Billions of dollars were poured into reconstruction efforts, aiming to strengthen the Afghan security forces, promote good governance, and improve the lives of ordinary Afghans. The initial defeat of the Taliban did not mark the end of the war. Instead, it ushered in a new phase, a protracted insurgency that would, honestly, test the resolve of the United States and its allies for almost 2 decades. The Taliban, despite their losses, were far from finished. They retreated to their rural strongholds in the south and east, along the porous border with Pakistan, and began to regroup. The Taliban exploited several factors to sustain their insurgency. First, they tapped into the lucrative opium trade, which really flourished in Afghanistan. The Taliban taxed opium production and trafficking, providing them with a steady stream of income to finance their operations. Second, the Taliban exploited the safe havens they enjoyed in neighboring Pakistan. Elements within the Pakistani military and intelligence services, harboring their own strategic interests in Afghanistan, provided support to the Taliban. This support allowed the Taliban to train, recruit, and launch attacks across the border. The United States-backed Afghan government, despite billions of dollars in aid and assistance, struggled to establish legitimacy and effective governance. Corruption was rampant, undermining public trust and, honestly, hindering development. The Afghan security forces, while growing in size, faced challenges with training, equipment, and leadership. The Afghan government's inability to provide basic services, ensure security, or address widespread corruption fueled public disillusionment. This in turn created fertile ground for the Taliban's propaganda and recruitment efforts. The Taliban, positioning themselves as a viable alternative to a corrupt and ineffective government, slowly began to win back support in some areas. By the late 2010s, with the United States public weary of the long war and the human and financial costs mounting, the Trump administration initiated direct talks with the Taliban. These talks, aimed at negotiating a United States withdrawal from Afghanistan, largely sidelined the Afghan government, further weakening its position. In February 2020, the United States and the Taliban signed an agreement that set the stage for a full United States withdrawal by May 2021. The agreement, however, was conditional on the Taliban meeting certain conditions, including severing ties with al-Qaeda and engaging in peace talks with the Afghan government. These conditions, however, proved difficult to monitor and enforce. The Biden administration, inheriting this agreement, decided to proceed with the withdrawal, albeit with a slight delay. The withdrawal of United States forces and the perceived abandonment by their superpower patron had a devastating impact on the morale of the Afghan security forces. The stage was set for the Taliban's final offensive.